Gerald Harmon was not a man who apologized. Not to his co-workers, not to his neighbors, and certainly not to his only son. He had built his life on a single belief, that strength meant never bending, never showing doubt, and never letting anyone, not even the people you loved, see the cracks in the wall you had spent decades building around yourself. He was 53 years old, a retired construction foreman from Columbus, Ohio, with calloused hands, a bad knee, and a silence so heavy that people in the same room as him often forgot to breathe. His wife, Carol, had passed 8 years ago from a quiet illness that took her slowly, like a tide pulling sand, and after she was gone, the house on Maple Creek Drive became less of a home and more of a building where Gerald simply existed, drinking his coffee black, watching the evening news, and pretending that the empty chair across the dinner table didn't bother him. But tonight was different from other nights. Tonight, Gerald was sitting at his kitchen table staring at an envelope. It had arrived that morning. No return address, Columbus postmark. His name written in handwriting he had not seen in 10 years, but recognized immediately, the way you recognize a scar, not because you look for it, but because it never fully disappears. His son's name was Daniel Aaron Harmon, born June 14th, 1985, during a thunderstorm that knocked out the power at St. Anthony's Hospital. Carol had laughed through her contractions, telling Gerald not to look so terrified, that everything was going to be fine, and it was. For a while, everything was exactly fine. Daniel had been a quiet boy, the kind who read books during recess and drew complicated maps of imaginary worlds in the margins of his notebooks. Gerald had tried, in his way, to shape the boy into something harder. He'd signed him up for Little League, for wrestling, for weekend hunting trips that Daniel endured without complaint but never embraced. There was a distance between them that Gerald had always told himself was normal. Fathers and sons were not supposed to be best friends. That was not how it worked. That was not what his own father had taught him. But the distance grew. By the time Daniel was in college, studying literature of all things, Gerald had begun to feel something he couldn't name. It wasn't quite disappointment. It was more like watching someone walk down a road you knew led nowhere and being unable to call out to them because you had never learned the words. Then Daniel came home one weekend during his junior year and sat across from Gerald at this very table and told him something. Gerald had not handled it well. He had stood up so fast his chair scraped back against the linoleum. He had said things, loud things, ugly things that came from somewhere deep and frightened inside him, from a place he had never examined because examining it would have meant admitting it existed. He had told Daniel that as long as he made choices like this, he was not welcome in this house. He had said it clearly without stumbling, the way a man gives an order on a job site, firm, final, no room for negotiation. Daniel had looked at him for a long moment. Not with anger, that would have been easier. He had looked at him with something closer to grief, like someone watching a building they loved go up in flames, knowing there was nothing left to do but stand there and witness it. Then Daniel picked up his bag and walked out the front door. Gerald heard the car start. He heard it pull out of the driveway. He stood in the kitchen and listened until the sound was completely gone, and then he poured himself a glass of whiskey and sat back down and told himself he had done the right thing. He had spent 10 years telling himself that. Carol had never known. She had passed 2 years before that weekend, and Gerald had decided long ago that this was a mercy, that she had been spared the argument, spared the ugliness, spared having to choose sides in a war that Gerald had started and won, and somehow felt worse about with every passing year. He reached for the envelope now and turned it over in his hands. The paper was slightly thicker than normal, the kind people use when they want a letter to feel like it means something. His name, Gerald Harmon, written in blue ink. Daniel's careful, deliberate handwriting. The same handwriting that used to leave little notes on Carol's refrigerator, that used to write stories and fold them into paper airplanes and sail them across the living room. Gerald opened it. There were 3 pages inside, folded neatly. He spread them flat on the table and put on his reading glasses and began. Dad, I've started this letter probably 40 times over the last 10 years. I have versions of it that are angry. I have versions that beg. I have one version that's only 2 sentences long and one that goes on for 15 pages. I'm not sure this version is the right one either. But I'm sending it anyway because I've run out of time to wait for the perfect words. I want you to know something first, before anything else. I don't hate you. I know that might be hard to believe. I know you probably assumed, after the way things ended, that I spent these years building a case against you, collecting evidence, sharpening arguments. I didn't. I spent these years living. Gerald's hands were steady. He told them to stay steady. I moved to Portland about 6 months after I left Columbus. I finished my degree online. I got a job teaching high school English, which I think you would find funny, or maybe you wouldn't. I genuinely don't know anymore what you find funny. I've been teaching for 7 years now, sophomore English mostly. Sometimes I assign the kids an essay about a person who changed their life, and I sit at my desk and read 30 versions of the same story. A coach, a grandmother, a stranger on a bus, and I think about what I would write. The answer has always been you, not because you changed my life with kindness, but because you changed it. That still counts. I met someone. His name is Marcus. He's a pediatric physical therapist, and he makes terrible puns, and he burns everything he tries to cook, and he is the best person I have ever known. We've been together for 6 years. We have a dog named after a Steinbeck character, which you would definitely find annoying. We have a life, Dad. A real, full, ordinary, beautiful life. I'm not writing to ask for your approval. I stopped needing that a long time ago, and I mean that without cruelty. I just mean that I had to build myself a foundation that didn't depend on whether or not you were standing on it. But I am writing because something happened 3 weeks ago that made me realize I couldn't keep waiting. I was diagnosed with a heart condition. It's called hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. The doctors caught it because I passed out during a run in the park, and Marcus was there, and he didn't panic because he never panics. The condition is manageable. I want you to know that right away. It is manageable. And I am not writing you a goodbye letter. I am not dying, but I could have been. The cardiologist told me that in some cases, people don't get the warning I got. They just don't wake up one morning, and I lay in that hospital bed the night after my diagnosis, with Marcus asleep in the chair beside me, and I thought about all the things that were unfinished. You were the only unfinished thing, Dad. I don't need you to agree with my life. I don't need you to understand it or celebrate it or even fully accept it. But I am 40 years old, and I have a heart condition, and I have spent a decade without my father, and I am tired. I am so tired of being estranged from you. Not because I need something from you, but because I think somewhere under all that concrete you poured around yourself, you might be tired too. Marcus knows I'm writing this. He told me to say whatever I needed to say. He also said, and I'm quoting him directly here, "Tell your dad that I make excellent chili." Whatever else he thinks, he's like that. He finds the door in every wall. I'm not asking you to call me and pretend the last 10 years didn't happen. I'm not asking you to show up at my door with open arms. I'm just asking you, if there is any part of you that wonders how I am, if there is any part of you that still thinks of the kid who used to fall asleep on the couch watching old westerns with you, write back. Or don't, but know that I wrote, know that I tried one more time. I still have the compass you gave me when I was 9, the brass one from your father. I kept it all this time. I don't know why I'm telling you that. Maybe just so you know that not everything from before is gone. Your son, Daniel. Gerald did not move for a long time. The kitchen clock ticked. The refrigerator hummed. Outside, a car passed slowly down Maple Creek Drive, its headlights sweeping briefly across the window, and then the room went quiet again. He read the letter a second time, then a third. He thought about the night Daniel left. He had replayed it many times over the years, but always in the same way, justifying each word, building the argument back up like a wall that kept threatening to fall. But tonight, reading Daniel's handwriting, something in him shifted. Not cracked, not collapsed. Shifted, like a door that has been stuck for years, finally moving on its hinges. He thought about Carol. He thought about what she would say if she were sitting across from him right now at this table, with this letter between them. He knew exactly what she would say. She would not yell. She would not argue. She would just look at him with those steady brown eyes and say, "Gerald, don't be a fool for the rest of your life." He got up from the table. He went to the small desk in the hallway where he kept stamps and envelopes and a pen that actually worked. He sat down. He pulled out a piece of paper. He sat there for 20 minutes without writing anything. Then he started. "Daniel, I'm not good at this. You know that. You've always known that better than I did. I read your letter 3 times. I'm going to read it again after I finish writing this, because I want to make sure I didn't miss anything. That's something I've been doing a lot of lately. Going back, looking for what I missed. I missed a lot. I don't have the words your mother had. She could have written you something that would fix everything in 3 paragraphs. All I have is what I've got, so here it is plain. I was wrong. What I said that night, the way I said it, the fact that I let you walk out and didn't come after you, I was wrong. I was afraid. And I turned that fear into something hard and sharp, and I aimed it at you. And that is something I will carry for the rest of my life. I'm glad you're not dying. I need you to know how glad I am. I would like to know Marcus. A man who sits in a hospital chair all night and makes chili and finds the door in every wall. I would like to know that man. I still have the baseball glove you used in Little League. I kept it in the closet. I don't know why I'm telling you that. Maybe just so you know that not everything from before is gone. I'm not asking you to forgive me quickly. I'm just asking for the chance to be your father again. However long that takes, however that looks. Your dad, Gerald. He folded the letter. He addressed the envelope. He put a stamp on it with the kind of deliberate care a man uses when he knows an action is irreversible and wants to be sure he means it. He put on his coat. It was past 10 o'clock. The post office drop box on Henderson Avenue was 3 blocks away. Gerald Harmon, 53 years old, bad knee and all, walked every step of it in the dark. When he dropped the envelope in the slot, he stood there for a moment with his hand still raised, listening to the silence of a street at night. The distant sound of the highway, the ordinary sounds of a world continuing on around a man who had just done, perhaps for the first time in 10 years, exactly the right thing. He walked home. He left the porch light on.